I'm Greg Tepper. That's Greg Powers, and this is This Week
in Cruton.
This Week in Recruiting with Greg Powers, an NFL athlete. Follow him on Twitter at GPowerScout. Follow Next Level Athlete on Twitter at NextLevelD1. See his fine work at TexasFootball.com/recruiting. And, of course, this is brought to you by our good chicken friends at Chicken Express. Chicken Express, they know chicken.
Don't forget about that Chicken E sweet tea.
I don't want to get into it. This is a point of contention between Pickle and I.
Yeah.
You're a big sweet tea person. I just don't like other people dictating how much sugar goes in my tea. That's your
So
thing.
you sweeten it yourself?
Sweeten it myself.
Well, you can get the Chicken E unsweet.
Now they're unsweet tea.
No. Okay, power move here.
There we go.
Half and half.
There you go.
You got to go half unsweet, half sweet, because then it makes it perfect. I promise. Because you know me, I don't like sweets. It sometimes is a little too sweet for me. So yeah.
Well, here's what I
Go
do
half
know
and half.
about Chicken Express is that they let you put your own ratio together.
Yeah. No. Man,
So, I mean,
listen.
you can add as much sweet and unsweet as you want.
Yeah, you sure can. I need some Chicken Express now. All right, let's start this week in recruiting. A week out from National Signing Day, we're going to start with our prospect on the rise. Our prospect on the rise is Austin Westlake defensive end Colton Vasey, who is going to be a senior next year. Picked up a massive in-state offer from Texas A&M. Perhaps you've heard about their recruiting lately. This is a guy who helped lead the Chaps to another state championship last year. You know what he is, though? He's got a bunch of offers, TCU, Oklahoma, Texas, Oklahoma State, etc. Do you know what he is? He is the perfect embodiment of like what all those Westlake dudes look like, which are they're just huge and they're just fast, and you just don't want to be on the train tracks.
I think another asset that you can give to him is that he's like a true football player. He's a coach's son, and that shows through on tape. He plays very disciplined, but has the type of motor that really jumps out. And he went into the recruiting notebook when I wrote this last night with 17 offers, picked up offer number 18 today from Washington, so he's really on a roll right now. All the big dogs are going to come after him, and he is one that currently is not rated within the top 50 in the state, but he's a prospect on the rise because he's a definite four-star guy. Be a hard decision to see who moves out of the top 50 to move a guy like Colton Vasey into it. Yeah. That is going to be the big question.
This is the tough part of your job. Everyone thinks
tough.
that this is easy. You just get to sit here and chat with me, but it's tough. You gotta make these types of decisions. But I'll just say this: I haven't gone through the top 50. I watch Colton Vasey and I'm like, okay, he's the top 50 guy. You know, there's an eyeball test. Like we got to find a spot for him. And to me, it's that explosiveness and it's a little bit of versatility too. They can move him a little bit all over, and that I think goes back to the fact that you go to the coach's kid thing. They trust him. Like, where will we put him? We know he's going to follow his assignment, and he's going to make plays.
Well, you just saw him on one of these highlight clips playing middle linebacker, wearing number 91 and running a dude down in the backfield. So, yeah, he's got all the skill sets, and Austin Westlake, of course, boasted what I believe was one of the best defenses that I've watched in 20-plus years of watching Texas high school football. That was a great defense.
It was pretty darn good, and Colton Vasey was a big part of it, and new coach Tony Salazar is going to have him back for another season, but he picks up a big in-state offer this week from Texas A&M. Let's go to our commit of the week. Our commit of the week is Denton Geyer, junior quarterback, I guess soon-to-be senior quarterback, Jackson Arnold.
That's wild to think about.
Who is now a commitment to Oklahoma. Had offers from all over, as you can imagine. We got him at number 7 in the DCTF Hot 100. We have him as the number 1 quarterback in the state. Brent Venables comes poaching to the state of Texas and grabs the number 1 quarterback in Texas.
I love Jackson Arnold, and I think he's even better in person than he is on his highlight tape. I don't know why I say that, but just every time I watch him throw the ball, it's just more impressive when you see it with your own 2 eyes. His highlight tape is awesome, though, so that's hard to top. And I really think that he is the one guy who – we talked about Austin Westlake's defense. They matched up in the state championship game, and I think Jackson Arnold had a great game in AT&T Stadium. He really took it to the Westlake defense, keeping that game tight, especially in the first half. And – you know, it was one of those comeback type of stories that I could really appreciate because he was the freshman who stepped onto the field when Eli Stowers got hurt, tore his ACL, and it was Jackson Arnold as a freshman who tried to step in and lead Geyer to a victory over what was, you know, another great Westlake defense. And, you know, we kind of saw him grow up right before our own eyes. right? And we got an indication of this at the Elite 11 last year. I think we came in the week after the Elite 11, and I thought at that time he was probably the best quarterback that Denton Guyer has produced. And I stand by that statement now. I think that when it's all said and done, this is the guy that will put up the stats in college and in high school to be the best quarterback. And it's an impressive crop of quarterbacks that they've had. He's the best one that Guyer's had.
He's really impressive, and the growth that you've seen from him from that freshman year to what you saw, even if you only watched him in state championship games, I think it's like night and day. You're like, he went from wide-eyed and no chance to incomplete command against an excellent defense. Like, he has grown so much, and Oklahoma is certainly getting a good one. So if you thought that because Lincoln Riley was leaving that they were going to slow down offensively recruiting in the state of Texas, bad news, folks. This is This Week in Recruiting with Greg Powers and Next Level Athlete here on Texas Football Today. Get involved in the conversation, hashtag TF Today. Let's talk about our underclassmen of the week. Our underclassmen of the week is Duncanville 2025. I'm sorry. Let me try that again.
That was bad.
Duncanville 2025 wide receiver Decorian Moore. So he'll be a sophomore next year. He took an unofficial visit to Texas on their, I guess they call it Junior Day, but it's kind of like a
Elite Underclassman Day.
Day. He had He has had a nice couple of weeks here. Baylor, Texas A&M, USC, Oregon State. All adding to the offer tally for Decorian Moore. He is one of the top 25 freshmen in this year's magazine, DCTF Rising. He helped lead them to the state championship game. And, this kid is something special, plain and simple.
He jumped out again. He's another – the notebook this week is just loaded with top programs and top players. Mm-hmm. This is one that is stacked up.
Yeah, it's a very blue blood program or a very blue blood notebook.
Yeah, Decorian Moore. Duncanville wasn't a team that threw the ball around a whole lot this year, but when they did, it was Decorian Moore who was usually at the receiving end of those passes from Solomon James. He helped lead them to the 6A Division I state title game. He collected 15 receptions for 366 yards and 5 touchdowns in what was a breakout freshman season for him, and he's got all of the big dogs coming after him. And the one thing that I really, really like about him, for being a freshman, he played with so much poise, concentration, and control. He was a guy who catches everything that usually comes in his vicinity. And for a 6 foot, 165-pound guy, he has a pretty good catch radius. Long arms. He's able to go up and snag it out of the air, make catches in tight windows, and sky's the limit for him. I think the early consensus is that he'll be the number one receiver in that class. But, there's a lot of time left. There are going to still be some guys who haven't even put on a varsity jersey yet to compete with him. But out of the gates, he's looking really strong as the elite guy at the wide receiver position in the class of 2025.
To be a freshman and to immediately emerge as, arguably the deep threat for the Duncanville offense, which is usually no shortage of deep threats,
right,
is certainly tells you everything you need to know about Decorian Moore. You're going to be hearing his name a lot over the next couple of years. All right, let's round it all out with our Recruit of the Week. And our Recruit of the Week takes us to the saga of Harold Perkins. Side Park linebacker Harold Perkins, athlete, whatever you want to call him. They kind of moved him all over the field. You may remember a couple weeks ago, I believe at the Under Armour All-American game, he committed to Texas A&M. He had offers from all over, as you can imagine, but he has since decommitted from Texas A&M. From what I understand, maybe you have inside information on this, A&M is still very much in the mix, but he's adding LSU, Texas, and Florida back to his top 4. Harold Perkins, do we have number 2?
Number 6 prospect in the state. In
DCTF Hot 100, certainly a class maker for any program. Would love to have Harold Perkins. The saga continues. This is a guy who's been who's run hot and cold on a lot of different programs over the course of his recruitment, and right now he's back on the market.
What I think is interesting about this recruitment is that this is what I think that you can consider as the new age of recruiting, and why I'm watching this recruitment very closely. And sidebar, this isn't about Harold Perkins specifically. Will this recruitment start to change things back to the way they were to the traditional National Signing Day?
Mm-hmm.
Because right now Harold Perkins is one of the elite guys in the country unsigned, and the NIL deals are strong. with this one.
Yes.
You know, this could be a game changer as recruits maybe want to play this thing out and see what best deals are out there for them after the early signing period. So this could actually change the way recruiting works. This is, you know, one of those recruitments that we may look back on in a few years and say, wow, this was a turning point and colleges had to adapt to this, right? I also think getting a taste of playing offense and how good he did at running back this year has thrown a bit of a wrinkle into Harold Perkins' recruitment, because now schools are talking to him about playing on the offensive side of the ball, and he seems to be receptive to that. So we'll just have to see how this one plays out. I think Texas A&M is still in this, but he'll take an official visit to LSU this weekend. Of course, LSU is always really strong in the Houston area. They've had some top players from Houston on their roster, it seems like, every year. So that's one to certainly watch. They were in his top 3 whenever he picked Texas A&M. Texas has been a player in this one, and he took a recent official visit to Florida. So this is a real intriguing recruitment, to say the least. And I think that whoever he picks on National Signing Day, which he's set he will sign on signing day at Cypress Park High School. Whoever he picks on signing day is going to get a real phenom.
Well, and that's interesting that you mentioned that, because you know, Mike Craven was our college football insider. He's been on Twitter and saying that basically, in a lot of ways, if you take a look at a guy like this, there's not really a huge incentive for him to. He's not going to enroll early wherever he's going. So there's not really a huge incentive for him to sign on National Signing Day. He can, but but remember, we think of National Signing Day as like this day where all the recruiting happens. It just opens the door for you to sign. You can sign in June if you want.
And you don't have to sign at all.
You don't have to sign at all. You can just show up.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's what's going to be very interesting about this is, you know, we think about the early signing period. That has passed. A lot of those guys signed either because they wanted to get it out of the way or because they were enrolling early. For Harold Perkins and guys like him, maybe there's incentive for him to wait. But he is going to, you know, he says he's going to sign on National Signing Day. We'll see what happens. And obviously, you know, this is getting a lot of attention because he is one of the very top prospects in the nation. And certainly, as you mentioned, the NLI or NIL number, God, National Letter Intent, name, image, and likeness. I'm going to screw up 100 times. The NIL money is going to be certainly a factor. You know what I mean? I think that there's been, unfortunately, you're never going to believe this, but recruiting drives people crazy. I think that there's been a lot of dumb talk out there. People are like, oh, you know, like A&M's had a great recruiting class. Like, oh, they just backed up the Brinks truck to all these. Like, there's a rumor out there that they were spending $30 million on recruits. It's like, guys, let's not go crazy here. But at the same time, I do think that the NIL is something we certainly have to consider in this new landscape of recruiting.
I say get it while you can.
Yes.
That's the way I feel about it.
Absolutely.
And there's going to be NCAA legislation surrounding this eventually. They're going to put their hands around this and get it under control. But right now, get it while you can.
One guy we can't control is Greg Powers, the Next Level Athlete. Follow him on Twitter at GPowerScout. Follow Next Level Athlete on Twitter, Next Level D1. See his fine work at TexasFootball.com/recruiting.
Thanks so much for watching that video. If you would like more and to be notified when they come out, go ahead and click that subscribe button right down there. You can also watch Texas Football Today every day live at noon on TexasFootball.com, Facebook, Twitch, and right here on YouTube. For more of the best coverage of Texas football in the Lone Star State, go to TexasFootball.com/subscribe.